It's interesting that some of my most difficult clients as a dating coach are clients who grew up in a two-parent stable household, because one of the first things that we work through is dealing with how any trauma in your early childhood can affect your dating now. And too often I hear, well, there's no way I have any trauma. My parents weren't abusive. They didn't hit me or anything like that. And yes, there are levels to trauma, and there are some things that are bigger than others. But here are five signs of trauma that you probably didn't think of that most definitely affect how you deal with relationships as an adult. One is you grew up in an environment where you constantly had to prove yourself. So you had parents who expected you to be a straight A student or a star athlete. And anytime you didn't live up to whatever the thing was, you felt like you were a disappointment. Number two is you had to learn how to self soothe. Now, I'm always telling my clients that we don't bash our parents, but it is helpful to understand that, while they did the best they could with what they knew, sometimes they don't know everything, and that can include how to emotionally deal with their children. So if you grew up in an environment where your parents were not very good at giving you comfort, giving you hugs, helping you when you felt discouraged, then it can be hard as an adult to be able to receive that type of comfort and someone holding space for you in relationships. Number three is not being able to be yourself. That kind of goes with that first one with having to prove yourself. If you wanted to be something that wasn't what your parents wanted, and you felt like you were constantly compromising yourself, you can find yourself compromising yourself in adult relationships later on, or, developing people pleasing tendencies and ended up in relationships where you have a lot of resentment. Number four is constantly having to fend for yourself. Now, again, this doesn't mean that your parents were purposefully neglectful. But if, for example, you had parents who worked a lot of long hours, and because of that, they weren't always around to take care of you. Or if you were the oldest child in a family and you were parentified, you were tasked with taking care of your younger siblings. Or if you were a child who constantly felt like you had to parent your parents, you had to deal with their emotions more often than they dealt with yours, then, it can be, again, hard to relax and receive love in a relationship. And number five is having your feelings denied. If your parents constantly dismissed your feelings, denied your feelings, said things like, stop crying, or I'll give you something to cry about, then it can be hard for you to, again, express yourself in adult relationships.